My mother stood in my driveway, arms crossed, smiling like she'd just done me a favor. Behind her, the empty space where my 1967 Mustang should have been looked like a wound in the concrete. She said, "Thanks to your car, she's healing." And I laughed, not a nervous laugh, not a disbelieving laugh, a laugh that came from somewhere deep and cold, a place I didn't know existed until that moment. My mother's smile faltered. "Why are you laughing?" she asked, and I could hear the first thread of uncertainty in her voice. "I'm Claudia Marie. I'm 28 years old and I restore classic cars for a living at Martinez Classic Auto in suburban Sacramento. I take photographs of every single stage of every restoration. Bolt removal, primer coats, upholstery stitching, everything. It's not just my job, it's my religion. Documentation is sacred to me. Timestamps, invoices, progress notes. I learned it from my grandfather, who taught me that beauty means nothing without proof of the work behind it. That Mustang wasn't just a car. It was 5 years of my life. It was every weekend, every spared dollar, every careful measurement. It was my grandfather's last gift to me before he died. Not the rusted shell he left in his will, but the promise he made me keep. Bring her back to life. My family never understood why I spent so much time in that garage, why I chose grease under my fingernails over Sunday dinners, why I documented everything like I was building a legal case instead of rebuilding an engine. Turns out, I was. When I returned from 2 weeks in the Sierra Nevada mountains, the first real vacation I'd taken in 3 years, I found my parents had sold my car for $45,000 while I was gone. They used the money to send my 25-year-old sister Victoria to the Maldives for a month, a healing retreat for her anxiety. Her third bout of anxiety this year, her third job quit, her third time my parents wrote a check to fix her life. Except this time, they didn't write a check. They stole my legacy. And when my mother told me it was for Victoria's mental health, I laughed because I knew something she didn't. That car was in a trust, and they'd just committed fraud. Before we dive into how I set myself free, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy this story. Where are you watching from? Drop your city below in the comments. Now let me take you back to where it all began. My grandfather, Thomas Marie, was a mechanic in the truest sense. Not the kind who ran diagnostic software and replaced modules. The kind who could hear what was wrong with an engine from 50 feet away, who could rebuild a carburetor blindfolded, who treated every vehicle like it had a soul worth saving. I was 6 years old the first time he let me into his garage. I remember the smell, motor oil, metal shavings, and the vanilla pipe tobacco he wasn't supposed to smoke but did anyway. He lifted me up so I could see into the engine bay of a 1972 Chevy Nova, and he pointed to each component like he was introducing me to old friends. "This is the heart," he said, tapping the engine block. "And this is the breath, touching the air filter. Never fix something without understanding what it's meant to do. A mechanic who doesn't respect the purpose is just a parts replacer." I went to his garage every Saturday for 12 years. While other kids were at soccer practice or the mall, I was learning to read compression, to time an ignition, to feel when torque was right just by the resistance in my wrist. He never treated me like I was too young or too female. He treated me like I was capable, and so I became capable. The Mustang arrived at his garage 3 months before he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. A 1967 fastback, Acapulco blue, seized engine, rusted quarter panels, interior completely destroyed. The owner had died, and his widow just wanted it gone. Grandpa bought it for $3,000. "This one's special, Claudia," he told me, running his hand over the hood.
She's got good bones. Everything else we can rebuild. We started the teardown together that fall. I was 23, working my first year at Martinez Classic Auto. We'd work side by side on weekends, and he'd tell me stories about the cars he'd restored, the mistakes he'd made, the lessons he'd learned. He taught me to photograph every step. Documentation isn't about not trusting yourself, he said one Saturday, watching me photograph the suspension components before removal. It's about respecting the work. You take it apart right, you can put it back together right. But memory fails. Photos don't lie. When he got too weak to work, he'd sit in his chair in the corner and direct me. His voice got quieter, but his standards never lowered. Check that gap again. You missed a spot on the primer. Feel the metal. Tell me what it needs. 2 weeks before he died, he had his attorney come to the hospital. I thought it was just estate planning, but when Mr. Davidson, his lawyer, asked me to step into the hall, I learned it was more than that. Your grandfather is putting the Mustang into a revocable living trust with you as the sole beneficiary. The car is legally yours, Claudia. It can't be sold, seized, or transferred without your explicit consent and notarized signature. He wanted to make sure no one could take it from you. I didn't understand then why he felt that was necessary. I was his granddaughter. My parents wouldn't, but he knew them better than I did. The last thing Grandpa said to me was, "Finish her, Claudia. Make her beautiful, and don't let anyone tell you she's just a car." I promised. I kept that promise. After he died, I brought the Mustang to my own garage, a converted 2-car structure behind the house I rented. I installed security cameras because I kept expensive tools there. I bought a dehumidifier to protect the paintwork. I built custom storage for every original part I managed to source. And I documented everything. Every bolt removal had a photo. Every paint layer had a time-stamped entry in my restoration journal. Every invoice was scanned and filed. The trust paperwork lived in a fireproof safe in my bedroom. I didn't do it because I was paranoid. I did it because Grandpa taught me that beautiful things require proof, that craftsmanship isn't real unless you can show the work. 5 years, 60 months, 240 weekends. That's what I put into that car. And the whole time, my family thought I was just wasting time on a hobby.
The shift started small, barely noticeable. Victoria quit her job as a marketing coordinator at a tech startup about a year ago. It was her 3rd job in 2 years. First a retail position, then an administrative role, then this one. Each time, the story was the same. Toxic work environment, unsupportive boss, too much pressure. My parents always backed her up. The workplace is so different now, my mother would say. Mental health has to come first. And I agreed, genuinely. Mental health does matter. But there was something in the way Victoria wielded that phrase like a shield, like a get-out-of-jail-free card for any responsibility she didn't want to handle. After she quit the marketing job, she moved back into my parents' house. Just until she gets her bearings, Dad said. She's going through a hard time. Family dinners became uncomfortable. I'd shown up after a long week, hands still stained from engine degreaser I couldn't quite scrub out, and Victoria would be on the couch in pajamas at 4 p.m., scrolling through travel Instagram accounts. "How's the job search going?" I asked once, trying to be supportive. She looked up, eyes instantly wet. "I can't handle that kind of pressure right now, Claudia. I'm healing." Mom jumped in immediately. "She's dealing with a lot. Not everyone is as resilient as you." The way she said resilient made it sound like an accusation, like my ability to hold down a job and pay my own rent was somehow a character flaw. Dinners became a minefield. Every conversation seemed designed to highlight the contrast between us: Victoria's sensitivity versus my coldness, her emotional intelligence versus my practicality, her need for support versus my selfish independence. "We're worried about you, Claudia," Dad said one Sunday. "You spend all your time alone in that garage. It's not healthy." "I'm restoring Grandpa's car. It's almost done." "Still?" Mom's tone was dismissive. "Honey, you've been working on that thing for years. At some point, you have to let go and live your life." "This is my life." "See," Victoria said quietly to Mom, "she doesn't get it. She's never understood what it's like to struggle emotionally." I big back my response. I'd struggled plenty. I dealt with grief when Grandpa died, with imposter syndrome in a male-dominated field, with loneliness and doubt, and all the normal human things. But I'd handled it quietly, privately, without asking my parents to fund therapeutic vacations or subsidize my unemployment. That apparently made me the problem. The requests started around that time, small at first. "Claudia, could you lend Victoria $200 just until her unemployment comes through?" "Claudia, could you give your sister a ride to her therapy appointment? She's too anxious to drive." "Claudia, could you miss Sunday dinner? Victoria's having a hard day, and your presence might be triggering for her." Each time I said yes, because that's what you do for family, right? You show up, you help. But help started to feel like fund and enable and disappear so the golden child doesn't have to face reality. 6 months before my vacation, Victoria announced she wanted to go to Bali. "For healing," she said. "I've been researching trauma-informed travel, and I really need to reset in a place of natural beauty." The trip would cost $8,000. She asked my parents to pay for it. I watched their faces at dinner that night. Dad looked uncomfortable. Mom looked thoughtful. "That's a lot of money, sweetheart," Dad said carefully. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "So my mental help isn't worth it? I'm literally falling apart, and you won't even—" "We didn't say no." Mom reached for her hand. "We just need to figure out the logistics." They didn't have $8,000 in discretionary income. I knew that. They were lower middle class, careful budgeters, responsible with money. That kind of expense would require selling something. I just didn't realize what they were planning on selling. 2 weeks before my vacation, Mom visited my garage. She never visited my garage. "Wow," she said, looking at the Mustang. "I just finished the final coat of paint. The Acapulco blue gleamed under the work lights." "Thanks," I said, surprised. "Just needs the interior finished and she's done." "How much is it worth?" The question felt off. "Why?" "Just curious. You've put so much work in it." "It's not for sale, Mom." I know, but hypothetically—" I should have seen it then, the calculation in her eyes. But I wanted to believe she was finally seeing my work, finally understanding what this meant to me. A fully restored '67 Mustang Fastback, probably $45,000 to $50,000 depending on the buyer. She nodded slowly. "That's incredible, honey. You should be very proud." Then she left, and I went back to work, and I didn't think about it again. Not until I came home from the mountains and found my garage empty. I pulled into my driveway on a Sunday afternoon, windows down, still smelling like pine trees and campfire smoke. 2 weeks in a cabin near Lake Tahoe with no cell service, no internet, just books and hiking and silence. It had been perfect. The garage door was closed, which was normal. I always kept it locked when I traveled. But something felt wrong. I got out of my car slowly, keys in hand. The side door to the garage had a deadbolt that I'd installed myself. It was open. Not broken. Open. My heart started pounding before my brain caught up. I pushed the door wide and reached for the light switch. The space where the Mustang should have been was just empty. Concrete floor, oil stain in the shape of where she'd been parked, tool bench against the wall, but no car. For a moment, a long, suspended moment,
I thought I'd been robbed. Someone had broken in, stolen my grandfather's car, 5 years of my life, the last connection I had to. Then I saw the note on my workbench. Claudia, we knew you'd be upset, but you'll understand when you calm down. Victoria needed this more than you needed a car. The buyer gave us $45,000, which covered her healing retreat in the Maldives and some extra therapy sessions. She's leaving tomorrow. This is a chance for her to really recover. We used your spare key to get in. Dad still had it from when you were sick last year. The buyer seemed very knowledgeable about classic cars. He was thrilled. You're always so strong and independent. You don't need things like Victoria does. You'll build another car. This is what family does for each other. Love, Mom and Dad. I read it 3 times. My hands didn't shake. My vision didn't blur. I just felt very, very cold. They sold my car. They used my spare key, the one I'd given them for emergencies, to enter my property and sell something that wasn't theirs to sell. They forged my signature on the title transfer because there was no other way to complete the sale. And they did it to fund a luxury vacation for my sister. I walked back to my car like I was moving through water. Everything felt slow, distant. I drove to my parents' house on autopilot. Both their cars were in the driveway. So was Victoria's. I used my key to enter through the front door. The TV was on in the living room. I could hear laughter. They were watching a travel show. Victoria was stretched out on the couch with a face mask on, scrolling through her phone. Mom and Dad were in their recliners, glasses of wine in hand. They looked up when I walked in. "Oh, honey," Mom said brightly. "You're back. How was your trip?" I just looked at her. "Did you see our note?" Dad asked. "We wanted to explain before you got home, but you were out of cell range." Victoria sat up, pulling off her face mask. "Claudia, I know you're probably feeling some type of way about the car, but I really need you to try to understand. My therapist says that I've been carrying trauma from our childhood, and—" "Where's the title?" I asked. My voice sounded normal, calm. "What?" Mom blinked. "The title to the Mustang, the bill of sale, the buyer's information, where is it?" "The buyer handled all of that," Dad said. "Some classic car dealer from Stockton, very professional. And you signed the title." "Well, we had to," Mom said, a defensive edge creeping into her voice. "You weren't here and he was paying cash. We did what we had to do." "You forged my signature." "We did what was necessary for this family," Mom said firmly. "Victoria needed—" "That car was in a trust." Silence. Victoria looked confused. Dad's face went pale. Mom's expression flickered. Confusion, then dismissal. "What are you talking about?" Mom asked. "Grandpa put the car in a revocable living trust before he died. I'm the sole beneficiary. The car cannot be sold, transferred, or seized without my explicit notarized consent." I pulled out my phone, opened my photos, and showed them the trust document I'd photographed and saved. "You just sold a car you had no legal authority to sell, using forged documents." "We're your parents," Mom sputtered. "You can't—" "And I have security cameras in my garage, time-stamped footage of you entering my property, opening my garage, and allowing a buyer to remove my vehicle. I have 5 years of documentation proving my ownership, my restoration work, and the vehicle's provenance. I have every invoice, every photograph, every work order." Dad stood up. "Claudia, let's not be hasty. We can work this out as a family." "You stole my car for a vacation." "We borrowed it," Mom insisted. "We were going to pay you back eventually. This isn't stealing, it's—" "What?" I asked Mom. "What is it, Mom?" She straightened her spine, and I saw the shift happen in real time, from defensive to entitled. "It's family," Real family members sacrifice for each other. Your sister is struggling, and you just sit in your garage playing with car parts like a child. That money is actually being used for something important. Playing with car parts? I repeated. You know what I mean. You've always been so obsessed with that car, with proving something to a dead man. Victoria's alive. She needs help now. Victoria was crying now, mascara running. Claudia, why are you being so cruel? Can't you see I'm suffering? I looked at my little sister, 25 years old, who'd never kept a job longer than 14 months, who'd never paid for her own therapy or rent her car insurance, who'd been coddled and enabled and protected from every consequence, and I laughed. It wasn't a mean laugh. It wasn't even an angry laugh. It was a laugh of someone who suddenly understands a joke they've been missing for years. Why are you laughing? Mom demanded. Because I just realized I've been playing a game I didn't know I was in. You're going to want to call that buyer back. What are you talking about? The sale is void. You had no legal authority. When I report this, and I will, he's going to have to return the car or face charges for receiving stolen property. And you're going to face charges for fraud and forgery. You wouldn't do that, Dad said, but he didn't sound sure. Call Victoria's Resort. Cancel the trip, because every penny of that $45,000 is going to need to go toward legal fees and restitution, and that's if I'm feeling generous. I turned and walked toward the door. Claudia, Mom's voice was shrill now. You get back here. You can't do this to your family. I stopped at the threshold, looked back. You sold my inheritance for a beach vacation. You forged legal documents. You violated my trust and my property, and you did it because you thought I was too nice, too stable, too strong to fight back. We're your family, Victoria sobbed. No, I said quietly. Family protect each other. Family respect each other. You just saw me as a resource. There's a difference. I left them there in their living room, the travel show still playing on mute. I drove home, walked into my empty garage, and sat on the floor where my Mustang should have been. And then, finally, I let myself cry. I'm going to stop here for a second. If this story is resonating with you at all, or if you've ever felt the pain of being misunderstood by the people who are supposed to love you most, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe. It really lets me know that sharing these hard stories is worth it.
Monday morning, I called Mr. Davidson. Claudia, he said warmly, it's been a while. How's the Mustang? Stolen, I said, by my parents to fund my sister's vacation. Long silence. Tell me everything. I did. Every detail, the note, the forged signature, the security footage, the trust violation. Mr. Davidson listened without interrupting, and I could hear him typing. Okay, he said finally, this is actually more straightforward than you might think. The trust is ironclad. Your grandfather made sure of that. The sale is legally void from the moment it occurred. The buyer will have to return the vehicle or face criminal charges. Your parents committed several crimes: forgery, fraud, theft. The question is how you want to proceed. I want my car back. That's the easy part. The harder question is whether you want to press charges against your family. I thought about it. Really thought about it. What are my options? Option 1, we file a police report, pursue criminal charges, and let the system handle it. Your parents could face jail time. Option 2, we handle it civilly. We contact the buyer, explain the situation, recover the vehicle, and sue your parents for any associated costs. Option 3, we do both. What do you recommend? Honestly, file the police report, not necessarily to punish them, but to create a legal paper trail. If they genuinely didn't understand the severity of what they did, the charges might get reduced or dropped. But you need leverage, Claudia.
People like your parents don't take responsibility unless they're forced to. I filed the report that afternoon. The police took it seriously. Fraud, forgery, theft, these weren't minor infractions. Detective Sarah Chen was assigned to my case, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. I see this more often than you'd think, she said, reviewing my documentation. Family members who think love gives them permission. It doesn't. The law is clear. She contacted the buyer that same day. His name was Marcus Webb, and he owned a classic car dealership in Stockton. When Detective Chen explained the situation, he was horrified. I had no idea, he told her. The parents seemed legitimate. They had a key to the garage, said their daughter was traveling, and had authorized the sale. I should have asked for notarized documentation, but the car was exactly what I'd been looking for, and they were motivated sellers. He returned the Mustang within 48 hours. No argument, no hassle. He even apologized. I'm out $45,000, he told me when he delivered her back to my garage, but I'd rather lose money than be part of a theft. Your car is beautiful, by the way. Your grandfather would be proud. I almost cried again. My parents didn't take it well. My mother called 37 times in the first 24 hours after the police contacted them. I didn't answer. She left voicemails that started apologetic, turned angry, then desperate, then threatening. You're destroying this family. Your grandfather would be ashamed of you. We gave you everything, and this is how you repay us? Victoria had to cancel her trip. She's devastated. Her mental health is in crisis. If you don't drop these charges, you're dead to us. That last one almost made me laugh again. Dead to them, as if I'd ever been truly alive to them in the first place. Dad sent emails, long, rambling justifications about family values and sacrifice and how it was being selfish and legalistic. You're our parents, he wrote. We made a mistake, but you're treating us like criminals. I wrote back, you are criminals. You committed crimes. Actions have consequences. Victoria posted on social media a long, tearful thread about toxic family members, about siblings who value material things over human connection, about how she was canceling her healing journey because of unforeseen family trauma. The comments were split. Half of her friends offered sympathy. Half asked pointed questions about why she needed $45,000 for healing in the first place. The extended family weighed in. Aunts, uncles, cousins, most of them took my parents' side without knowing the details. Family forgives. Blood is thicker than water. You're being vindictive. But a few people surprised me. My Uncle James, my dad's younger brother, called me directly. Your dad told me what happened, his version. Then I asked some follow-up questions and the story started to fall apart. I just want you to know what they did was wrong, Claudia. Completely wrong. I'm sorry you're going through this. It meant more than I expected. My friend Marissa, who'd been my closest friend since community college, showed up at my house with wine and takeout. I saw Victoria's post. Want to tell me the real story? I did. And she listened, and she didn't tell me I was overreacting or being too harsh. I'm proud of you, she said, for not letting them get away with it. The legal process moved faster than I expected. Because the evidence was so clear, documentation, security footage, trust papers, forged signature, the DA's office was willing to pursue charges. My parents hired a lawyer, a cheap one, because they'd already spent the $45,000 they'd need to return to Mr. Webb. Their lawyer contacted mine, asking if we could settle this quietly. My clients made an error of judgment, their lawyer said, but this is a family matter, not a criminal one. Your clients committed fraud and forgery, Mr. Davidson replied. Those are crimes, not errors of judgment. They tried to negotiate. They'd pay me back, apologize publicly, attend family counseling, anything to avoid criminal charges. The $45,000 isn't mine to forgive, I told Mr. Davidson. They owe that to Mr. Webb. And counseling? They need to understand that what they did was criminal, not just hurtful. What do you want, Claudia? I thought about it for a long time. I want them to take responsibility, real responsibility. Not we made a mistake, but we committed crimes and violated our daughter's trust in a fundamental way. I want that on record. The DA offered a plea deal. If my parents pled guilty to fraud and forgery, they'd get probation, community service, and restitution payments to Mr. Webb. No jail time, but a permanent criminal record. They refused. We're not pleading guilty, my mother told anyone who would listen. We didn't do anything wrong. We're being persecuted by our own daughter. So it went to court.
The preliminary hearing was in November, 6 months after the theft. I sat in the courtroom with Mr. Davidson, watching my parents sit at the defense table with their lawyer. They looked smaller than I remembered, older. My mother's hair had more gray. My father's shoulders were hunched. Victoria sat in the gallery, glaring at me. She posted about the hearing on Instagram that morning, supporting my parents as they face false accusations from a vindictive sibling. Pray for us. The prosecution presented the evidence methodically. The trust documents, the security footage, the forged signature on the title transfer, my 5 years of restoration documentation. The defense tried to argue that my parents had acted in good faith, believing they had implied permission as my parents to make decisions about my property. The judge cut them off. Implied permission doesn't exist in property law, she said dryly. Either you have explicit, documented consent or you don't. In this case, not only did the defendants not have permission, they had explicit documentation proving they had no legal right to the vehicle in question. The defense shifted tactics. They painted me as cold, unforgiving, someone who valued a car more than family. The defendant's daughter has chosen to pursue criminal charges against her own parents over a vehicle, their lawyer said. This isn't about justice, it's about revenge. Mr. Davidson stood up. Your Honor, this case isn't about a daughter punishing her parents. It's about 2 people who committed fraud, forgery, and theft, then showed zero remorse. They didn't apologize. They didn't attempt restitution. They called their victim vindictive for expecting basic accountability. The vehicle in question represents 5 years of skilled labor, a legacy from the victim's deceased grandfather, and approximately $50,000 in value. This isn't petty. This is serious property crime aggravated by family betrayal. The judge ruled in favor of prosecution. My parents were offered the plea deal again. This time, their lawyer convinced them to take it. They pled guilty to 1 count of fraud and 1 count of forgery. Probation, 200 hours of community service each, restitution payments to Mr. Webb over 24 months, and a permanent criminal record. My mother cried. My father looked broken. Victoria stormed out of the courtroom. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no grief, no triumph, just a quiet, settled feeling, like something that had been out of balance for years had finally clicked into place. After the hearing, my mother approached me in the hallway. I hope you're happy, she said. Her voice was hoarse. You've destroyed this family. You destroyed this family when you chose to steal from me, I said quietly. I just refused to pretend it didn't happen. We're your parents. I know. That's what makes it worse. She turned and walked away, and I knew it was the last time I'd speak to her for a very long time, maybe forever. The healing didn't happen all at once. I started therapy 3 months after the theft. My therapist, Dr. Rachel Nguyen, specialized in family trauma. She didn't tell me to forgive my parents or reconcile with my sister. She helped me understand that I was allowed to enforce boundaries, even with family, especially with family. You can love people from a distance, she said. You can want the best for them without allowing them access to hurt you. I grieved, not for the relationship I lost, but for the relationship I'd thought I had, the parents I'd believed in, the family I'd imagined we were. You're mourning the fantasy, Dr. Nguyen explained, the version of your family where you were valued, respected, protected. That version never existed, but your brain thought it did, and now you have to grieve that loss. It helped to name it. I finished the Mustang's interior in December. The final piece, the original 1967 radio, which I'd had professionally restored, slid into place with a satisfying click. I sat in the driver's seat, hands on the steering wheel, and felt my grandfather's presence like a warm hand on my shoulder. "I finished her, Grandpa," I whispered. "She's beautiful." I drove her for the first time on New Year's Day, took her out on Highway 50 toward Placerville, windows down, engine purring. The Acapulco blue paint gleamed in the winter sun. She handled like a dream. I pulled over at a scenic overlook, sat on the hood, and took a picture. I posted it on Instagram, my first post in months. The caption? 5 years, worth every hour. The responses flooded in. Friends, co-workers, fellow restoration enthusiasts. Congratulations, praise, celebration. Victoria commented, "Must be nice to have a hobby while some of us are dealing with real problems." I deleted the comments and blocked her. I rebuilt my life around my own values. I stopped going to family events. I stopped answering calls from relatives who wanted me to be the bigger person and forgive. I stopped explaining myself to people who'd already decided I was wrong. I expanded my social circle. I joined a classic car club, went to shows, made friends with people who understood the language of restoration and craftsmanship. I started dating again, casually, carefully, with the newfound understanding that I deserved people who respected my boundaries. I got a promotion at Martinez Classic Auto. They made me lead restoration specialist, gave me my own team. My boss, Carlos Martinez, pulled me aside after the promotion announcement. "I know this year's been hell for you, but you never let it affect your work. You showed up, you kept your standards high, you proved what you're made of. I'm proud of you." It was the kind of thing my father should have said, but Carlos said it instead, and that was okay. I learned to sit with anger without letting it consume me, to acknowledge hurt without drowning in it, to set boundaries without guilt. "You're allowed to protect yourself," Dr. Nguyen reminded me in session after session, even from family, especially from family. The most surprising part of healing was discovering who I was without them. For 28 years, I'd been the responsible one, the stable one, the one who didn't need anything. I'd built my identity around not being a burden, not causing problems, not asking for help. But that wasn't strength. That was survival in a family that punished need. Real strength, I learned, was asking for help when I needed it, setting boundaries when I felt disrespected, walking away from people who hurt me, even when they shared my DNA. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since high school. Landscapes mostly. Imperfect, therapeutic, mine. I traveled, real vacations, not just stolen weekends. I went to Sedona, to Portland, to Vancouver. I took photographs and posted them without worrying what my family would think. I adopted a dog, a border collie mix named Gearshift. He slept in my garage while I worked, kept me company, reminded me that loyalty doesn't have to be complicated. And slowly, carefully, I let go of the fantasy family I'd never had and built a chosen family instead. Marissa, who showed up with wine when I needed it. Carlos, who valued my work. Mr. Davidson, who protected my grandfather's legacy. the classic car community who celebrated my restoration without jealousy or judgment. These people didn't share my blood, but they shared my values, and that mattered more. A year after the thefts, I got a letter from my mother. It wasn't an apology, it was a request. Victoria was engaged. The wedding was in 6 months. Mom wanted me to be there, to be part of the family again, to put this ugliness behind us. Your sister misses you, she wrote. We all do. It's time to heal. I read the letter twice, then filed it away. Healing doesn't mean returning to the people who broke you. It means building a life where they can't break you again. I didn't go to the wedding. Instead, I took the Mustang to a car show in Monterey that same weekend. She won Best in Class, and I stood next to her in the California sun, trophy in hand, surrounded by people who understood what she represented. Not just a car, not just a restoration, a promise kept, a legacy honored, a choice to value myself as much as I valued the work. My mother was right about one thing. Thanks to that car, someone did heal, just not the person she expected. I used to believe that family meant unconditional loyalty, that blood ties trumped all other bonds, that sacrifice meant erasing yourself for the people you love. Now I know better. Family isn't about shared DNA. It's about shared respect. It's about people who see your worth and protect it, not exploit it. It's about relationships built on choice, not obligation. My parents taught me that lesson, though not the way they intended. They thought I was too strong to break, too stable to fight back, too invested in peace to demand justice. They were wrong. I'm not strong because I endure mistreatment. I'm strong because I refuse to. The Mustang sits in my garage now, fully restored, exactly as my grandfather envisioned. Sometimes I sit in the driver's seat and talk to him, tell him about my day, about the projects I'm working on, about the life I'm building. I think he'd be proud, not just of the car, but of the choice I made to protect it, to protect myself. I still document everything. Every restoration gets photographed, time-stamped, filed. Not because I don't trust the world, but because I've learned that proof matters, that beautiful things deserve protection, that your work, your legacy, your boundaries, they're all worth defending. People ask me sometimes if I regret pressing charges, if I wish I'd handled it differently, been more forgiving, chosen family over justice. I tell them the truth. I didn't choose justice over family. I chose self-respect over dysfunction. There's a difference. Some relationships aren't meant to be saved. Some people aren't capable of the growth that reconciliation requires. And that's okay. You can wish someone well from a distance. You can hope they learn from their mistakes without being present for the lesson. You can love people and still refuse to let them hurt you. That's not coldness. That's wisdom. The last time I saw my mother was in a grocery store parking lot, 18 months after the trial. We made eye contact across a row of cars. She looked like she might approach me, and I saw the moment she decided not to. We both drove away. I don't know if my family talks about me, if they've learned anything, if they've changed. I hope they have, genuinely, not for my sake, but for theirs. But their growth isn't my responsibility. My responsibility is to the promise I made my grandfather, to the values he taught me, to the person I've become in the aftermath of their betrayal. Document the work, respect the craft, protect what matters, and never ever let someone convince you that their comfort is more important than your dignity. I'm Claudia Marie. I'm 30 now. I restore classic cars. I paint landscapes. I have a dog named Gearshift and a chosen family that respects my boundaries. My 1967 Mustang is parked in my garage, Acapulco blue and perfect, exactly as my grandfather dreamed. And I'm finally, fully, completely free.
Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and self-respect? What did that choice teach you about your own boundaries? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. This was another story from Revenge Room, where we turn pain into purpose and betrayal into balance. If this story resonated with you, please don't forget to subscribe and join us for the next transformation.